Salut, c'est François, bienvenue dans cette nouvelle émission, une émission très très spéciale parce qu'on va la faire en anglais. Je suis avec le fondateur de The Bee Token, qui est, voilà, pour faire vraiment très court, le concurrent de Airbnb, mais sur la blockchain. On va voir ensemble comment ça marche. En fait, on va avoir des explications donc, du fondateur. C'est vraiment révolutionnaire. C'est zéro frais de commission. Il y a plein d'avantages. C'est une sécurité qui atteint les 100%. C'est vraiment extraordinaire. Donc, je suis vraiment très excité. Et on va le faire en anglais de suite parce que Tony est déjà là. So let's get to it. So welcome to my podcast show. Today's guest is Tony Tran. I'm super excited. Thank you very much, Tony. It's good to have you here. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on, Francois. And to everyone out there, salut tout le monde.
That's awesome. So we have a few things to talk about. So let's get to it, Tony. So tell us very quickly who you are and what do you do?
Sure, absolutely. My name is Tony, and I am the co-founder and CTO of the Bee Token.
Yeah. So what was the story of the Bee Token? How did you come up with the idea?
Oh, that's a great question, Francois.
To start, yeah.
So it all started. So the CEO is John. John and I used to work together as engineers at Uber, and while we were at Uber, we worked on like the payment fraud team, and security team. We were just sitting down and we were just talking about, what was it like working at Uber? What deficiencies do we see in the system? We just like to sit down and just talk about, our thoughts on like the company itself and like the current ecosystem, all this stuff. And, it got me thinking. So first of all, I'm not sure how popular Uber still is in France.
Yeah, that's very popular. Yeah.
I remember there's a lot of controversies.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Especially in Paris.
Right. And so every time when I was at Uber, Francois, every time I would take an Uber, I would ask, hey, how is it going? To the Uber driver. And they would respond, you know what, it's going good. I'm making decent money.
Yep.
5 years ago, I was making much more money. Right. And so that got me thinking. I was like, just as a thought experiment, wouldn't it be really cool if that wasn't the case? It's a shame that Uber drivers who work so hard and they're a crucial part of the Uber ecosystem. I'd argue they're the most valuable asset to Uber. Why is it that 5 years ago, the people who were so important to a platform, how come they aren't making as much? How come they aren't rewarded more for being part of the platform?
Okay.
Right. And so that got me thinking. I was like, you know what? That's a really interesting idea. How can we really incentivize people? People who are really crucial to this platform. How come it just as a thought experiment? What if we rented out, say, Uber drivers don't get equity, right? So they're not necessarily owners of the Uber, right? And so they're not really incentivized to kind of help the company grow or stay on the company, stay along with the company because at any point in time, Uber driver can go with, say, Lyft, right? And so John and I just kept talking about that, and we came to the conclusion that is it really necessary for a company like Uber to really exist? Is a company really necessary for a company like Airbnb to exist, right? Because at the end of the day, if I'm going to Paris, I'm staying at someone's place in Paris. The real value is myself and the person in Paris. The value that Airbnb provides is them connecting us together, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But what if that wasn't the case? Airbnb, what if I could find a person in Paris and connect with them directly and just transact just in peer-to-peer way, right? All we really need is some sort of system that aggregates all the listings and aggregates, and allows people to look for the listings, right? That's essentially all we need. We need some sort of marketplace, right? In addition to that, we need a way to kind of say, hey, if I'm going to Paris, I need to make sure that if I go stay at this place in Paris, I need to make sure that my payment gets through, and the host in Paris needs to make sure that any money that they receive for the stay also works as well, right?
I got it.
Yeah. So that was a long story short. The main inspiration for this was just us sitting down and thinking about,
Okay, that's a nice story. So now, how could you explain how the business platform work and what the B token is? Maybe like to a real estate investor, or maybe someone who use the Airbnb platform. How is it possible to work with absolutely zero commission?
That's a great question, first of all. And I've been asked this for like a year and a half now.
I know the answer, but you know.
I know. What I was going to say was, it's easier to explain to someone who's the notion of what a decentralized autonomous organization is, who's more familiar with that, because it's kind of interesting, right? Because if you look at our business, there's no real, say, cash flow. There's no real, say, revenue, so to speak, right? Mm-hmm. So to a traditional business person, that wouldn't really make any sense, right? But then, so let's take a step back. What are we really trying to achieve with this business, right? What are we really trying to achieve with this project? Well, at the end of the day, most crypto projects are trying to achieve something called a decentralized autonomous organization.
Yeah.
So what does that mean, right? It means here's a project, here's a business, here's a organization, here's a corporation. What if that can be decentralized? What if that can be democratized? What if I want to stay at a place, Airbnb right now, right? If I want to find a place, say in Paris, I have to use their platform and all this stuff. If I have any complaints, I go to Airbnb. If I have any, say, issues with Airbnb, I go to Airbnb. Airbnb dictates the product. Airbnb dictates how their company grows, right? I have no voice. I'm not a shareholder. I'm just merely a user of the platform, right? Mm-hmm. So I have no voice in how a company like Airbnb, I have no voice in, say, any other company, how they grow, right? But I am a crucial part of that ecosystem, right? And so imagine a corporation where it's ran strictly by the people, and the governance of it is ran by the people, right? And so that's what we're trying to achieve. And as a result, to answer your question, why is it that we take 0% commission? Well, at the end of the day, we feel that the main value is between the guest and the host, and we don't really need to give commission there. I'm not sure if that answers your question clearly.
I mean, usually that's the number one question that I get on B token. So I talked a lot about the B token. And maybe to someone who absolutely do not understand the blockchain, how could you make it simple, very simple? Or maybe another question that is how could we build trust with the blockchain system?
Sure. So you're asking how can I trust the blockchain system, or how can people start to trust more of the blockchain?
Yeah, how could you make the Airbnb of the blockchain to someone who use it today?
So I think the big thing right now is I'm not sure if you used our platform yet, Francois, or if any of your guests have used our platform yet. But to use it today, if you want to stay at anywhere place on our platform, you need to have some amount of B token. We're also accepting credit cards.
Yep.
But
you have some fees, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So to answer your previous questions, there is commission if you don't use B token. There's a 0% if you use.
That's the idea.
Yeah. So that's one way that we generate a little bit of revenue.
Okay. Right. So, and could you tell us more about your job inside the B token team?
Sure. So my role as the CTO, it's basically to make sure that everything's up and running. If there's any issues with the engineering side, I'm the person to go to. So I basically help with road mapping, helping interact with the product team to build out the roadmap for the platform.
Okay.
For a project. So there's two components actually, first of all. One is this actual BNS, right? Mm-hmm. And the other part is this suite of protocols that we're building to actually build the BNS.
Okay.
So it's making sure that those two components are aligned, and to make sure that we're just executing and building as quickly as best as possible.
Okay, and what's the roadmap maybe for next year or for the next 2 years?
Yeah. next couple of years. So right now we're for the engineering side and for the product side, we're mainly focusing on finishing up the protocols. So right now we have the payment protocol, which is the escrow, which is basically the escrow smart contract. That's finished. That's on mainnet. We also have the arbitration protocol and the reputation protocol that we're currently developing, and some versions of it are on testnet right now. By the end of say next year, all that should be on mainnet, but most likely very much sooner than the end of next year. In terms of the product, we're planning to expand into more cities. So right now we're mainly focusing on in the United States, California.
That's sad.
No, and the reason
for now.
As well. and you know what? The reason behind that, first of all, is that we want to make sure that we learn how to basically operate very well and basically to operate to expand very well in like one particular region before we expand to other places, right?
So here is my next question. So how do you expand? How do you select the properties that you use for the business platform?
So right now we have like a manual process that we go through. A lot of our listings are through our initial investors. And so they'll send us a list of their properties. We'll look at it. And at the end of the day, if it looks, it looks like the availabilities look right. And if it looks like something that, our people would use, we'll just put it on. But for the most part, if you have listings, if you're Airbnb host and it looks like you're interested in our project, we'll put you on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's fine. Okay.
Yeah. So regardless if you're in, say, France or anywhere else, we're happy to collect your information, and when we expand to those cities, we'll let you know. And
absolutely, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about the real estate tokenization. I wanted to talk and focus also today about that. So what are the advantages on the real estate token?
Sure. So you're asking if I have a piece of real estate.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It, right? So there's a couple of ways to look at it. One question I have for you then is can we fractionalize the tokens for it, or is it like a single token, right? So I'm assuming that it's a token that's divisible, right? You can fractionalize a fractional token, right?
Yeah.
So maybe I take a step back then, first of all, and explain what the advantages of the tokenization is in general.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example of a recent project that I came across. This person is working on, say, everyone here has Wi-Fi. Everyone, I imagine most folks have Wi-Fi, right, at home.
Yeah.
Connection. Most of the time, people are not fully utilizing their Wi-Fi's, right, or their internet. Imagine if you're driving around and you don't, rather than paying for internet on your phone, you can tether off other people's Wi-Fi around like their house, right? Imagine you do that with the token. And so, first of all, maybe I'm about excuse me, first of all.
No problem.
So I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that it allows for underutilized resources to be utilized. Is one thing.
Yes.
With the tokenization, and it incentivizes people, right? Because right now I can say, hey, I can just make my router passwordless, so that if you're around the area, you can just store my Wi-Fi. But that doesn't make sense to me. That provides a lot of security issues. I'm paying for my internet. I don't want other people to.
Yeah. I see the idea.
and so if you tell me, hey, I want to use your internet, but I'll pay you X amount of tokens, I'll be like, I'm more receptive to that, right? I mean, what are your thoughts, Francois? If someone said, hey, I want to, I don't want to pay, I'm visiting from the United States. I need internet. I'm willing to pay you a couple of tokens for it. Is that okay with you?
Okay. All right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so to relate this back to your initial question of like real estate, right? Perhaps tokenization can be one way for, I guess, analogy for me initially when you asked this question was timeshare, right?
Yeah.
Right. So fractionalizing ownership of a particular piece of real estate based on time, right?
Mm-hmm.
I own this property based on, like, say from January to February, right? And that's one way of, like, breaking up real estate based on time. So what if you broke up the ownership of real estate, right? Rather than ownership of it based on time. What if me and you bought, say right now, if me and my girlfriend wanted to buy a house in San Francisco, for example, we can just put it under my name, and then at that point, everything be under my name. She trusts me, and that right now, under my name, right? But it's kind of difficult to say, hey, this is under, say, my name and her name as well, right? Just logistically, all the paperwork, all the stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I imagine what tokenization would be able to do is say, hey, I own one token, she owns another token. This represents all the tokens. Both tokens combined represents the ownership of this particular property in San Francisco. And so then what does that allow us to do? That allows us to, it allows us to basically, in my head, like introduce more liquidity for those particular tokens, right? So I can say, hey, Francois, you want to, I have this piece of property in San Francisco. I own half of it. Me and my girlfriend broke up. I want to get rid of it.
Okay. All right.
Proof. Here's proof. Everything's stored on the blockchain. Would you want to buy it, right? And so I'll just transfer it to your wallet, and voila.
This is it.
This is it. C'est ça.
Okay, so but yeah, I understand that usually people understand the benefits for the investor, but they do not understand the benefit for the owner. That's why I asked you the question. But maybe what's the benefit to tokenize a fraction of a property?
What is the benefit?
Yeah, not just all a property, and not maybe 10% of it.
So maybe if you can give me some more details, Francois. So maybe
that you wanna stay and still be the owner of the property, but you wanna tokenize at the same time a fraction of it. The situation.
So I own a property, and I want to kind of so maybe like at least in San Francisco, there's what you call like in-law units, like smaller units outside. Maybe that might make sense. Maybe for me, I have a big property in San Francisco. Well, I don't, but let's say I do. Let's say I have a big property in San Francisco, and I have outside of it, like in my same lot of land, I have a smaller unit outside, right?
Okay.
Maybe I don't want to spend time and energy to maintain that particular small unit. So right now, if I had a small unit, I could just rent it out on Airbnb and all that stuff. But that's more of investment for me, right? Invest in my time, invest in my energy, invest in my money, right? What if I can rent that out to someone right now? Maybe a property manager, maybe someone else, right? And they can take care of it. Well, I imagine in that case, having tokenization of that particular property, smaller property outside would help. Fractionalizing the shares there would allow multiple parties to come into play rather than just one single party. So that's the way I see it. What else? I mean, what are your thoughts, Francois? Would you do something like that?
Yeah, I mean that's a really interesting question. That's why some people want to know. That's why I ask you that. Okay, so maybe you want to say something else about the B token to conclude this interview?
Sure. I think one thing that people are going to see really soon, and I think that's really interesting, is this notion that we're going to introduce called real world mining. And let me explain to you what that is, Francois. So right now, let me ask you this: how do you earn Bitcoin right now? How do you earn Ethereum right now? You mine, right?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
You mine, right? So you had to mine it, right? And how do you mine it? You would have to mine it with. You can bring up your computer, like the laptop that I'm using right now, and you try to mine. And most likely, you try. You can try. Most of the time, you have to join a mining pool or something like that to earn something, right? Very expensive if you actually want to become like a professional miner. Right now, arguably not worth it. But
that's not easy. Yeah.
Not easy at all. So the concept of real-world mining is, well, what if you took that question of, right now, it's really hard to mine Bitcoin. It's really hard to mine Ethereum. It's really hard in general just to mine. What is a way to democratize mining? How can we make mining accessible to everyone? How can we do it with the BNES platform, right? How can we do it with Beta? So one thing that we're planning to do, and this idea at this phase, and we're planning to move on it really quickly, is, hey, if I'm listing my place on this platform, I should earn some tokens, right? Regardless of whether or not there's any stays there.
Yes.
So instead of using your computer to mine, you're using your home to mine. And so that's like the concept that we're trying to introduce very soon.
Okay.
Right. So you don't need an expensive computer. You just need a cheap house to mine. Which is probably more expensive than a fancy computer.
That's interesting.
Right. And so that's the concept that we're trying to introduce. What if you can attend a conference? So one thing, Francois, is another way or one of our go-to-market strategies is, right now, the people who are really interested in our platform are crypto users. And where do crypto users go? Well, at least in the United States, there's a crypto conference once every week or so.
Nice for that.
And so one of our target markets is crypto enthusiasts. And crypto enthusiasts, when they're traveling around to crypto conferences, we want official accommodations partners with these conferences.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you once again, Tony.
Absolutely.
Fine. Okay, fine. Stay tuned for the next episode. If you want to ask me a question or question to Tony, feel free to ask me directly, and see you. Bye bye.
Thank you so much, Francois.